I said hello, but I never told you that I was actually John Paris, the guy who was pestering you with all the emails and everything else. But again, thank you for taking time out of your day. We'll get into a little bit of your background now, obviously. Currently, you are the state controller, and you're running for treasurer. Why have you decided to run for treasurer at this point in time?
Well, first off, we're termed out for controller, of course. And one of the reasons why I want to run for treasurer, probably the overarching reason when I was deciding what do I want to do next, the state has to replace our statewide accounting system. It's about 20 years old, and when they bought it, it was old to begin with. It's still written in this COBOL language. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but those of you who go back to the 18th century like myself, yes, it's written in COBOL. And so we have to replace the statewide accounting system, and when we got the system put in to begin with, it turned out it was more of a banking system than an accounting system. It had to be heavily customized, and with my experience that I've had in helping my clients in my CPA firm prior to becoming controller, helping them to find the right type of accounting system, I thought that I can use my expertise to go and do that. Some of the things that we're doing, the governor's office came to my office about 2 years ago, maybe 3, something like that, and said, yes, we need to replace the statewide accounting system. Maybe we should put in money for a study for it right now. In this last session, I said, no, let's do a benchmarking study, see where we're at, get a baseline, where we're at with our human resources, information technology, procurement, and finance. Compare ourselves with our other states, find out where we're not automated, where we should be. Then the next step, do a reprocess engineering, because if you take the same old practices, same old ways of doing it, and put it on a new system, we haven't gained anything. And you know, we see the news about all the IT projects that go wrong in government, okay? We spend millions and millions of dollars, and so one of the reasons I want to do that and be treasurer is because I can oversee it and make sure that we don't get ripped off, we do it the right way, we don't get sold a bill of goods. So that's one of the overarching reasons that I stepped into that position.
When you were controller, well, when you first started out, Nevada was collecting about 11% on its debts, and through policies that you and your office instituted, now we're up to 28%, which is still below where we'd like to be, but it's a fantastic increase over that time period. What ideas do you have to perhaps revitalize some of the tasks of the treasurer's office, which again is different from the controller's office? But what ideas do you have to try and, in addition to the new computing system or accounting system, try and modernize or make your office more efficient?
All right, well, let me just update you a little bit on the controller's office here. In the debt collection area, we're actually going before the legislative interim finance committee this week, or this coming week, and then the board of examiners in September to actually upgrade our accounts receivable module in debt collection that will actually give us some more tools to go and collect the debt, which will probably bring us up over the percentage that we're already collecting. And the way that's going to be paid for is will be paid for through the increased collections that Nevada gets. So we're not forking out the money. It's like $1.8 million, but we're not paying the vendor $1.8 million and hoping it works. They won't get paid unless it works. They'll get paid 75% of the increased collections that we get, which will be, that's how we should do things, right?
It's good incentive.
Well, if they say that these things will do all these wonderful things, then we should go and have them, you know, put their money where their mouth is, so to speak. As far as the treasurer's office goes, there's several things that I want to do in the treasurer's office. One area is in the unclaimed property. Okay, I want to really rework the audit function in there, so it's one, more efficient. Oftentimes the auditors, and I'm talking from personal experience from my CPA firm when my clients would be audited for unclaimed property. And the auditors oftentimes would come out to a client just because they forgot to file a report. In this case, they had a new controller, they didn't know they had to file unclaimed property, so they missed it, so they got audited. The auditor was there for 9 months, walked away with $2,000. Okay? Now, in the meantime, the client's been harassed, the business has been harassed, and we've spent some money there. So I'd rather go and do a couple things. One, do risk assessments. What types of businesses really are subject to unclaimed property? Two, even work it out, maybe go in with taxation or unemployment, taxation more so because they look at the same records unclaimed property does, and tag in with them so we're not disrupting the business. And then also say, all right, you go in after 2 weeks, if you haven't found anything, get the heck out, right? And so that one, it will put less burden on the businesses as well, and also do kind of an education program, because a lot of businesses don't know that they have to file unclaimed property reports. Those are these old checks that people haven't cashed and what have you. So do an educational program and then offer like an amnesty program for them to report. And I think that that's a much better approach than to be punitive if you don't report and what have you. And like I said, streamline it there. And then the other thing I'm looking at is I'm looking at some of the statutes for unclaimed property and seeing if we might be able to change some, because I want to make sure that uncashed gift cards that don't expire, that they never ever become subject to unclaimed property. Because to me, when you have gift cards, and even the ones that do expire, because now you have to turn over 60% of them, right, that don't get cashed, all right, and they expire, you have to turn over 60% to the state. Well, the whole idea of unclaimed property is to get the property back to that rightful owner. Gift cards don't have a name. They don't go back to the rightful owner. It just goes to the state. So I want to really work on revising those statutes as well. Because unclaimed property, the purpose is to get the property back to the rightful owner, but if there's not a name on a gift card, it's not going to go there. So that's one of the areas. The other area that I want to look at in the debt area, this is issuing debt, bonds, and what have you. Because of our economy, we had to become very, very conservative in our issuing of debt. And we kind of raised the debt ceiling to like 3% instead of the 2% cap that we had before, which meant that we're issuing less debt. And I want to go and see if we can't start easing that a little bit more so we can start continuing to do some of the projects, infrastructure projects that we have that creates jobs as well. In the investing area, I don't know if it's so much efficiency, but I think it's a way that we can, let me explain how the investments work in the treasurer's office. There's this misnomer out there that the treasurer, meaning me, if I become treasurer, that I would sit there and pick out the stocks. That's not true, right? The policy is set by the Board of Finance, which the governor sits on, the controller sits on, the treasurer sits on, and 2 people that the governor appoints. Right? They set the policy to say to the treasurer's office, here's what you can and can't invest in. And because we're very risk adverse, we're very, it's not like investing in your personal portfolio where you can invest in some derivatives and some hedge funds and things like that. You can't do that. And so one of the things that I want to do, I think our policy is sound, but the way we can actually improve some of our investments or our return on our investments is to look at our cash flow very closely, monitor it on a daily basis, right? And that's where, coming from the private sector, my own CPA firm, that's how we help businesses be successful. It's about cash flow, right? And so really monitor the cash flow, and I think we could actually lengthen the maturity of the portfolio. Right now, it's about 18 months. So if we can get the portfolio maybe 2 years, it's not going to be a lot, then we can go and get a little bit better return. And I would do the same thing for the local government investment pool. That's where the small counties pull their money together and we invest it for them. The maturity on that portfolio is 90 days. So it's very, very low. And I've been going and doing some outreach to the county treasurers around the state, and I've been asking them, if I asked you to give me cash flow statements on a weekly basis, would you be able to do that? And they go, oh yes. And so if we go and we get those cash flow statements, and I know when they're going to need money, we can lengthen that portfolio, getting them money as well. So that's one thing. Those are the simple things right now. And then in the treasurer's office, just making sure that we have cross-training in all the offices, so if something happens to somebody, we can handle it. Also, I am going to look at bringing back our money managers. We currently are investing all the money ourselves. And a couple reasons to bring back the money managers. One, we would have backup, because if something happened to the individuals who invest in our office, which there's only 2 in the treasurer's office, something were to happen to even one of them, we'd be stuck. We couldn't move money around. So if we have money managers, we can have a backup plan. And also, we can kind of benchmark who's doing the best. Are we getting our money's worth? So those are some of the things.
Based upon your experience, and I'm sorry, Ron, you look like you might have wanted to ask something. Based upon your experiences as the state controller, we're hearing a lot of things about underfunded pensions. The state of Illinois is going to be well upside down. The city of Detroit is, for various and sundry other reasons, is having some serious problems. What idea? I don't know if, quite candidly, I don't know if this falls under the state treasurer's purview. But are we going to find ourselves in a similar situation in the next 5 or 10 years with investments not performing as well as we would like, causing our portfolios for people's retirements to be problematic?
Here's why Illinois is in trouble. What happened is when they got into budget crunch, instead of taking the required contribution that they had to make every year, they used it to pay for other things. In Nevada, there's a constitutional amendment that no employer can borrow from the fund. So every year, we have to make a required contribution. That's how the funds get in trouble. Ours, actually, there was a study that was just done. I haven't gotten my hands on it, and someone was just telling me about it, that the legislature required and the governor required just recently. It was just finished, and they found that Nevada's pension plan is actually one of the better ones because of its governance issue, how it's governed. We have no politicians on the board, which is good. The fact we have, it's true.
What do you have against politicians? You're on the record, just so you know.
Well, they tend to, no, and that's why I said treasurer has nothing to do with it. But we have no politicians on the board. That's a good thing. So things don't get done for political reasons. They get done for the right reasons that make sense. That the numbers are the numbers. The other thing is the way they monitor their investments, their investment policy and stuff is what makes it very sound. We have made some changes to our pension plans in the last few years for the legislature, so now you're not going to be seeing people get those 6-figure pensions anymore, because now it's based on your base pay, not on your base pay plus your overtime and all those other things. So we've made some changes. Also, you have to work for 30 years now before you can, collect, and you have to be 60 years old. So now you can't start working with the state at 21 years old and retire at 51. You don't get to, well, you can retire, but you're not going to get your pension until 60. So we've done some things, I think, to really shore it up. And as far as our investments, if you look over it at the last 25 years, we've been making about 9% on average for the last 25 years. And that's kind of the long-term thing. So.
Question?
Yes.
I was talking to a state senator recently about the mining tax, about the tax on mining.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me in an actuality, we're going to owe them $70 million this year because they paid us $90 million the other year.
That is true. What happens in the net proceeds tax, right? They project what it's going to be, and they pay the counties and the state out based on that instead of actual. And I was talking to some counties, I said, well, we need to really look at changing that to making it, let's pay them out what's actual instead of having it prepaid, because what has happened is the price of gold has gone down, so their net proceeds are less. And the other thing that tends to happen, sometimes they start mining that gold that's harder to get to, so their costs go up, so the net proceeds go down. But that is true. That is true.
Where would the money, if you were already in that position, that would have to be your problem, right? Where would the money come
Well,
from?
it's going to be the legislator's problem.
Oh, okay.
And the governor's problem.
Okay.
Yeah, the treasurer doesn't set policy. I do have some influence with the legislators as controller and even as treasurer, because they will come to me and ask me, what about this, what about that, and stuff. But that's going to be their problem, and the problem that we have is, where are we going to cut?
Yeah.
Where are we going to cut?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Thank you.
yes.
Yes. What, I'm one of the recipients will be pretty soon on the 30-year retirement program because I work for the state.
Okay.
So I'm very happy. We are doing very well, I know, because our investments are growing. We are a model for many other states. So with your coming in, we will improve the system, and with your transparency, we will get more benefits to the state.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you, thank you. I'll definitely follow
It's a
up.
pain to catch.
Mindy? Well, I think there's one question back here.
Oh, I got one.
Yes.
What are your views on the expanding power
And one of the
of
benefits.
the government, our federal government in areas formerly administered by our states?
Okay, can you give me an example specifically?
Well, like issues right now that you were talking about privatization, and then plus, as you see that we have this whole big issue about the
The Bundy thing? I mean, I don't really dwell in those things at all, because as controller and treasurer, I'm more into the dollars and cents more than anything else. You know, I really don't have an opinion one way or the other on that.
Well, as long as somebody's paying the bill, you're okay with it?
As long as someone's paying the bill, that's a, well, I mean, here's something, I'll give you an example. We just went and there are some areas where when we have what we call the unfunded mandates, maybe that's what you're talking more of, and that can be an issue. I actually fought to keep from what I call an unfunded mandate happening as controller. In 2006, they passed a law that every business that did business with a state, local government, or federal government, we would have to withhold 3% from their checks, from gross, for withholding, right? And to me, that was an unfunded mandate, right? And so I actually I helped to fight that with my National Association of State Auditors, Comptrollers, and Treasurers group. I actually got an award for my work in that area to get rid of that because it wasn't fair, it wasn't right. I think that some of your other programs, when here's something that we're trying to do. This is my work in the Association of Government Accountants, their intergovernmental partnership where we're working with federal, state, and local government people. We're actually trying to find better ways to go and do the funding and put the requirements down. One example is we're trying to do what they call blended graded funding, and in your school lunch program, right? That's ran by the Department of Agriculture, but really the Department of Education is the one who's doing it.
Right.
And so we're really trying to go and put them, so we work together as one entity instead of these silos and stuff, and that I think will bring some efficiencies and stuff. And as far as the unfunded mandates to say, well, you must provide this service to your citizens, well, hey, we need some money, and Nevada's not out of the woodwork yet. I was just looking the other day, and our gaming taxes are still down about 12% from pre-recession. Sales taxes down about 7% from pre-recession. So that's a problem. So, but yeah, I mean, there has to be a happy balance. Now that I kind of understand your question a little more, I don't think that it should be shoved down our throats, okay?
Yeah.
So